is easily justified. This is what Ron Thompson calls reactive crisis management, a last-ditch management strategy that we should really try to avoid.
If Chobe and the adjacent game areas do hold 70,000 elephants, this means that we would have to remove 35,000 elephants from this population, and we would have to do it immediately. But we must remember that 35,000 elephants would bounce back to 70,000 within a period of 10 to 14 years, and that is not long enough a period for this habitat to recover. Now, if we want to just hold the elephant population at 35,000, we would still have to remove between 1,400 and 2,500 elephants per year, if we want the adjacent areas and Chobe Game Reserve to remain viable wildlife units.
An alternative suggestion is that man should supply the elephants with artificial waterholes away from the river. This can be done. Indeed, it has been done in other game reserves in Africa. And it is an excellent way of distributing the elephant feeding load during the dry season bottleneck. Artificial waterholes benefit many other species too. But the provision of more water is not the answer to the overpopulation problem. All these extra waterholes do, in the absence of population reduction, is create new focuses of destruction. This open plain is located next to Guvalala Waterhole in Zimbabwe's Wangi National Park. Guvalala came into service in 1959, when the area you see here was covered in dense woodland and thicket. It took just 30 years to change a healthy woodland into this desert.
The provision of artificial waterholes in conjunction with population reduction is probably the most satisfactory way of solving Chobe's currently horrific elephant management problem. The picture I have painted will undoubtedly shock many viewers. But I hope that, as much as you may not want to believe it, you do understand the logic behind what has to be done. Always remember that elephants have the capacity to increase their numbers very rapidly. For example, in 1960, Zimbabwe's elephant herds numbered 32,000. Over the next 30 years, 44,000 elephants were killed. And yet, by the year 1990, the country carried an estimated 75,000.
It is hard to believe that at the turn of the century, in 1900, there were only 5,000 elephants in the whole of Zimbabwe. South Africa now has some 7,000 elephants, just 1% of the total for the whole of Africa. Most of these are maintained in Kruger National Park, and annual culling programs keep them constantly in a state of satisfactory balance with their habitats. South Africa's elephant management program is highly sophisticated. The South Africans practice proactive management, that is, the solving of a potential overpopulation problem before it develops into a major habitat crisis. And what is most important, before any species are lost. Proactive management is what every wildlife authority should be striving to achieve. Namibia also maintains a satisfactory balance between the elephant population and its habitat in Etosha National Park, but not in Mahongo. Kenya has a different problem. Most of Kenya's elephants live on land outside the designated sanctuaries.
Each African country, therefore, has its own elephant problems. And it is important that each of these countries solve their own problems, each on its own merits. Some elephant populations are in great danger from poachers, others from human encroachment, and yet others, as we have seen, are in even greater danger from themselves.
It is not our intention to direct blame at Botswana for not culling its elephants. We do understand the immense political and social pressures that have been exerted on the Botswana government to not cull its elephants. We have, however, used the very special elephant management problem that exists at Chobe to demonstrate the facts and realities that apply to responsible elephant management. We hope to create a better informed international public that will be more understanding of the very difficult management decisions that often have to be made.
The biggest problem facing wildlife managers today is the fact that the public demand that our game reserves carry more elephants than the habitats can safely carry. And I wonder about this. I think it's to satisfy some of mankind's inner nature-loving whims. On the other hand, the tourism industry needs huge spectacles of elephants to attract international tourists to our game reserves, and thus to earn megabucks in foreign currency for our governments. Any suggestion that will reduce our wildlife attraction, therefore, is often strictly opposed by private tourism operators. Nevertheless, money is important. Money would go a long way towards solving Africa's commercial poaching problems. But then we will need a whole new program to discuss, for example, the merits of the safari industry. We'd need a whole new program to explain why it is vitally important that the proceeds from culling operations go back into the pockets of the local people. When the people get benefits from the elephants, only then will they develop an emotional ownership over their elephants. And that is what will ultimately stop poaching in Africa.
If mankind is to do the right thing by Africa's elephants, and in the interests of all the species of plants and animals that share the elephant's environment, then society needs to make itself properly informed about the realities of Africa and about wildlife management practices that work in Africa.
I have spent 3 decades in National Park Service in Africa. I have been in charge of several of the continent's greatest elephant game reserves. And I love these great beasts. But they are not sacred cows.
Elephants are wild products of the land, just as cattle, sheep and goats are tame products of the land. And the economic competition that exists between them will ultimately seal their respective fates. In a nutshell, the elephants of Africa will have to sing for their supper. And they will have to provide supper for the people of Africa too, if they are to survive.
You have seen the reality. But the wildlife management recommendations that we have made in this program will never be applied without your understanding and acceptance. Literally, the future of the African elephant lies in our hands, for it is within our power to create the social attitude that will support the return of common sense to the practice of wildlife management. Unless you and I support governments to apply responsible elephant management today, all we will have to hand down to our grandchildren will be the mere effigy of a magnificent animal that once was.